Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Running in Circles podcast. This will be the penultimate episode of the season, and I am joined by two people who are coming in this podcast for the second, or in Nair's case, the third time. So, first we have Nirmit. Hello, Nirmit.
Hi. It's a good day to score my hat trick on this podcast.
Yeah,
Kohli is on 100 and I'm मेरा third है.
yeah. The wait for the 71st for Kohli and the third one for you. Yeah, and we also have Pranav Nair, who have been calling Nair in this podcast.
Yep, I go by that pseudonym, which is my actual name. But anyway, it's good to complete the trilogy in the very first, the very second season, my first season. Yeah,
Yeah,
completed the trilogy. It's good to be here again. That's pretty good.
yeah. All right. So then let's begin with the episode. In today's episode, what I thought we'll discuss is a trend which we're seeing in Hollywood and Bollywood. It's the trend that action-oriented films or the genre of superhero-oriented films, they are doing extremely well at the box office, and the small budget films like in the Bollywood case, like films like Newton and films like Badai Do, and in Hollywood there are so many examples of such films. So what I wanted to discuss was, how do you think is this genre changing the current state of cinema, and what are your first thoughts? We'll start with Nirmit.
Yes, I mean 2 years ago, the picture was definitely different than what it is now. But I think the only fact that it stayed that even then the MCU films in this case were doing starkly, I mean really well in contrast. So all the the Avengers films, the Black Panther films, they're all in the top 10 or at least in the top 20 of the highest grossing films ever. And even today, I think the one sort of the green shoot or the brightest shoot that we could see post pandemic was the Spider-Man, um, uh, the latest Spider-Man movie, right?
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
So all throughout, we saw a lot of flops, not just flops, but films not doing great.
Average.
All had to go to OTT. All had to sort of shut down shop at the box office in maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and then they
Yeah.
went straight to some sort of OTT. But Spider-Man did really well, which explains the fact that even 2 years down the line, most films have had to change their tack and have had to change the way that they were distributed. But MCU, I think, does really well. And I mean, we're talking just when Batman has released this weekend, but so we'll have to see how Batman does in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, it's great that the last Spider-Man one movie continued to hold that sort of record for MCU and superhero movies in general, despite the fact that I think the third wave was still raging in major
Yeah.
markets like US, Europe. So it didn't stop people from going to the theaters, and I mean
Correct.
that's great for that sort of genre anyway.
Yeah. Your thoughts on this, Nair?
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Nirmit just said, I mean, he raised the claims that obviously that in the past few years the superhero movies are doing pretty well, but I think the main reason is that like people really like to go to watch a movie where they can see a recognizable name. And by that I don't mean the actor or the the set of actors taking part in that movie. By that I mean the characters.
Hmm.
So I mean, if in contrast, if you say like an Oscar-worthy movie,
Hmm.
over there you don't really see what do you say? I mean, if it's based on a book, sure, but then again, there's a stark difference in stark difference in a comic book to a novel, right? A
Hmm.
comic book way popular than a novel. I mean, with the exception of Harry Potter series, that's there. But a comic book, you have repetitiveness of like the character. A character constantly shows up with different in different volumes, in different storylines, in different timelines. And I guess uh, just the sheer number of years superhero comics have been around, I guess
Hmm.
people are well versed throughout the globe that what a superhero is and what their capabilities are. So just to see that come into life, like, watching that character being played by a human,
Hmm.
it's a very big feat, है ना? I
Hmm.
mean, apart from the fact that big production houses are backing it with like a good chunk of money and a
Yeah.
lot of CGI is used,
Hmm.
but there is a certain amount of fascination with just watching your favorite superhero or a superhero, being fleshed out, and being played. That's a certain level of fascination, and that's why it has glued seats of so many around the world. And
Hmm.
I think that's like the biggest reason why this trend is like rising. And I think it's safe to assume that that trend is just gonna go higher and higher until
Yeah.
for a while now.
Yeah. Uh, to add my thoughts on that, I if we go by the history of movie going experience, initially I'm sure it must have started with people wanting to see a story, a very personal story that they could just watch with their family. But over the period of time, I feel like there uh, the n- the movies that came out eventually sort of made the public choose in terms of what movies they want to or want or not want to see. To take an example, Titanic came out in the 90s and it did amazing even at that time. Like the ticket prices were cheaper then, but still the movie broke $1 billion, which is not an easy feat considering the price of tickets back then. So Titanic was a breakthrough, and it made everyone realize that uh, people want to see the stories uh, that they already know, or they want to imagine how that story would look like. Like 1 week back, I made this episode on fiction worlds. So I feel like the movies have now people want to see the stories that like which exists only in their imagination. Like, of course, there is no Iron Man in real life, but uh, if there was an Iron Man in real life, how cool would that be? Or if there was a Batman in real life, how awesome would that be? So it's the like it's these famous people oriented movies that has shaped the current movie going experience now, like movies like Jobs, uh, and what else? Any other movies that you guys have in mind?
Just Rocket Man and the one about Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, Bohemian
Is
Rhapsody. Even in
Bohemian
India,
Yeah.
Rhapsody.
I mean, the latest ones of, I mean, all sporting stars. I think that brings people to cinemas,
Yeah.
and like war heroes. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
war heroes and like sports personality are very popular. Like
yeah,
we just had a movie on 83, right? So again, it did well because it's a story based on a real life event. Like, people only imagine what the scene must have been like if you were a part of the dressing room that won the World Cup. So it's movies like these that have shaped uh, or like that have made the audience being selective about what movies they want to see or what movies they don't want to see. uh, so yeah, moving on from that, in what ways has like the superhero movies changed the movie going experience, like specifically the superhero movies?
I can go first. I mean,
Mm.
like I said, specifically, I think the only thing that is consistent after the pandemic is, like I said, superhero movies doing great, right?
Mm.
It I again, maybe it's a coincidence that all of these movies are releasing, closer to the summer, because earlier it used to be like the event film of the year, right? I mean, the summer
Mm.
movie of the year. Avengers used to
Correct.
release in peak summer, so
Correct.
people would go. And now that it's a, I mean, tried and tested, established crowd catching experience,
Mm.
I think it'll be it is already the sort of the spearhead of these major like production houses. So for example, Disney Plus has a range. Obviously, Disney as a company has, I mean, a plethora of like TV series and movies and blah blah blah, some of which we don't even know. But
Mm.
currently, I think the most revenue or the most sort of spearheading effort is through MCU, right?
Hmm.
Even all the sort of the OTT series that have been following, sort of the
Hmm.
spin-offs of Loki and all the other characters,
Hmm.
they're all literally, I mean, riding on the success of these event summer
Avengers.
movies like Spider-Man and Avengers and all of that.
Hmm.
So I don't know if this eclipses the other genres of movies. Again, I think they'll have to take more of a risk, and I mean they'll have to be more courageous when it comes to going straight to theaters, and they'll have, I mean, for example, lots of movies are now definitely all the theaters are opening, but I think the superhero genre will always, I mean, that will continue to have the, I mean, it'll always be bold
Crowd
enough
puller.
to go straight to theater. So I don't think you can release a superhero movie for OTT in the same way, like for example a Bond film, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Bond was finished, the last Bond 25 was finished what, back in 2019,
Yeah.
and they were planning to release it in March 2020, and they
But
knew
pandemic hit.
that, yeah, and they could have easily, I don't know, made like $100 million just by going to Prime or something,
Hmm.
which they eventually sold to Prime now. But I mean, it's the same with superhero movies. I'm pretty sure a lot of the movies that were released during the pandemic, the MCU ones, were obviously finished earlier, but they waited and waited because they knew that if
They are crowd
if
pullers.
superhero, yeah, so I think it's always going to continue being the crowd puller,
Hmm.
and increasingly the production houses will like want to ride other projects on the basis of this. um
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, so yeah, based on their success, I think they can sort of diversify into other things and make shorter films and spin-offs and all of that.
Hmm. Nair, your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, very well put by Nirmit. I think, like as he said that, I mean, all these superhero movies, they have sort of created a brand for themselves, which,
Hmm.
they have the entire world, sort of riding on it and loving it. I
Hmm.
mean, my biggest takeaway about the superhero, like how the superhero movies has changed the entire landscape, would be like the franchise shift. I
Hmm.
mean, let's be honest, the movie franchises have been here for a long time. You've had it with James Bond, and
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood's fistful of dollars, and I'm pretty sure that there must have been a few more earlier. But we are seeing this, what do you say, a universe kind of a thing, like many other production houses are even attempted that. So, I mean, after looking at the success of Marvel's MCU, you could see, what do you say, Warner Brothers trying out with DC, what do you say, DC Extended Universe. And
Hmm.
you even had a horror movie. I mean, I'm not sure if it is still on the table or if it has been scrapped, but you did have conversations about Tom Cruise's Mummy being a part of an extended universe, if you remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have sort of seen that seep into India's, like, I mean, Bollywood as well. I think the police movie. I'm sorry, I'm not in
Yes.
touch with.
The
I'm very
Rohit
much out of
Shetty
touch with.
cop universe.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very much out of touch with this universe, but yeah, this franchise shift again, it's not that new, but having seen how much amount of people are riding behind a recognizable face, a recognizable character, and how much money it's generating. More and more production companies are trying to do that, and if done correct, it has proven very much successful. I mean, you have a few companies sort of riddling it with that here and there, but at the end of the day, no matter how good or bad it is generating a lot of money.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, even Harry Potter. I mean, the last Harry Potter
yeah,
film came out so long ago, but they're still like going to push
Fantastic
out the new
Beasts.
Harry Potter series now,
Hmm.
and Fantastic Beasts. I mean, two movies are out. I think they're doing the third one now.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Hmm.
I'm saying they're still willing to go back. Oh, talking. I mean, Game of Thrones. I mean, Game of Thrones was the biggest hit, but it ended what, 3 years ago. But now they're still willing to put in the money for a prequel and all of
Yeah.
that. So
I
yeah.
think the show is titled House of Dragon or something.
yeah. I think
Yeah, so I mean, again, it's an OTT, so it doesn't qualify. But yeah, like Nair said, filling up that universe and attracting people to the familiar sort of, I
Hmm.
mean, family of movies into OTT. I think that's what, I mean, is a money sort of a money
Hmm.
bug.
I think the biggest name that I'm sort of I've omitted right now was Star Wars. But I
Yeah.
mean, the harsh truth is that MCU, the universe has what do you say, monetarily, just basis on the movies, okay, just basis on the movies, has monetarily done way better than Star Wars in general. I
Hmm.
mean, and I would say even the, what do you say, the public reception has been better. The Star Wars has been a really good franchise, but I
Hmm.
would argue the first, the episode 4 to 6, they were the
Peak.
only, what do you say? Yeah, they were the peak. I shouldn't say
Hmm.
only good movies, but yeah, they were the peak. And
Hmm.
what MCU is trying to do, there, I mean, you could argue if it is like a really good movie in terms of the quality of acting and the script writing and stuff. But at the end of the day, like people are loving it,
Yeah.
and the reviews are pretty good as well, because now like all the people who are reviewing it, they are very much on board, and they're very much understanding of like what exactly these people are trying to bring to the table.
Hmm.
It's I, like nobody goes to a Marvel movie thinking that, okay, I'm going to see an Oscar worthy acting. I mean, it is possible, but the main reason you're going there is because you want to see your favorite superhero fleshed out, and doing like badass stuff,
Yeah.
right? Kicking the ass of the villain, and at the end of the day, having what do you say, a good what do you say, good
Yeah,
ending and
a
a
nice,
happy ending.
yeah, just a nice popcorn movie that you can. I mean, you wouldn't watch a Marvel movie twice in the theater again, but yeah, like just a someone movie, right? You go, I don't know, 5, 10 people, maybe with your family, whatever, and it's just a it's an event film. It's literally that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
To take a side step on what Naya said, no, I don't think Star Wars is dead. Dave Filoni and John Favreau are doing some amazing work with The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. But yeah, and Star Wars is certainly back. And yeah, to continue this topic, I there are two aspects which I feel we haven't talked about. One is the rise of CGI. Back then, obviously, there have been multiple like comic book movies or movies that have source material. People have tried that long before. We saw that with James Bond. Ian Fleming has written a lot of books on that, and Star Wars also has some great work by George Lucas. And there were a few Marvel and DC movies back then. We had Michael Keaton's Batman. We had Wesley Snipes' Blade. There were enough source materials that, and those movies did average, like not very good, but they did average. Like Star Wars blew it out of the park, partly because of George Lucas and John Williams. But what the change that has come now is that uh, the CGI imagery has gone up notches, and that is why to see your imagination come to life in the form of those small, like you couldn't do Doctor Strange back then, you couldn't do Iron Man back then, but you can do them now because of the path that CGI has come to. So that's one thing. Because the CGI is great now, you can do these movies. And the second thing is the ticket prices. Now, I'll ask you guys a question. If the price of a ticket is, let's say, 300, uh, and would you want to go for a Bond film or a Star Wars film or a Marvel film, or would you save it up, or to watch like a West Side Story, kind of a movie? What would you do?
Yeah, so I would, if I'm being honest, like I mean, this is very much like my personal choice, and as you asked, so I would definitely go for an experience which would be more worth it if you're watching it on a theater, like in a cinema, going in a theater and watching it with like a really good sound system and a big screen. Like, and I would say 300 is well spent if you are watching, say, as you said, those franchise movies, James Bond, MCU, Star Wars, because that's an experience which can't be gained from a laptop or like maybe what do you say, a TV in your house. But I mean, it sort of saddens me to say this because I like a good Western movie as well as Mr. Mentioned. But yeah, I would much rather prefer watching a somber film or a good quality film on my laptop. in my own comfort.
Hmm.
Yeah, it again depends. I mean, would I have loved to? I mean, I guess watch a lot of movies that I watched at home. I mean, for example, worst thing now Tenet released right in I think in the uh when did it release? 2020, right?
Tenet released, I think, 2020. Yeah, digital
No, no, I think
digital
like
release, I
after the
think.
pandemic had started, right?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no, no. It had released very limited places in the US and
hmm.
stuff because I think
Yeah.
he was very adamant on releasing it in
Christopher Nolan.
theaters.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think India's theaters were open then or whatever. But so obviously, I watched it on Prime later in the year when it obviously had to come to OTT. I regret it. I mean, I obviously watched it on my laptop,
Yeah,
but I mean, it's not. It's a cliche, but I would have loved to watch that particular film in theaters. So
I agree.
I know a lot of the films got mixed up in the last 2 years. So that sort of mixes my mind. But now that, for example, Bond hit the theaters, and I was very adamant that I had to watch Bond in a theater live right
Yeah.
there. So again, like I said, there are these very set established film franchises that you have to watch there in the theater. But like Nair said, I mean, come on. I mean, there are after having I don't know, after having watched so many OTT, I mean, shows and movies all at home on your laptop, a lot of them you wouldn't really take the effort to go all the way to the theater, pay $300 for each movie, right? Here you're
Hmm.
paying what,
120 a month or
600 or whatever
something. Yeah.
month for Netflix, and the same
For
more
Netflix,
or less
it's, yeah.
same yearly. I think Prime is 1,000 per year, whatever.
Hmm.
You know you're going to watch more than 10 movies a month anyway.
Yeah.
So otherwise, it obviously there's a winner.
Hmm.
And then the effort of go and especially like going wearing your mask, having all of that going on. Yeah, I think I'm definitely skewed towards watching it at home now.
Hmm. All right. So moving on to the last part of the segment, great filmmakers like Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino, they've made comments saying that uh, superhero movies or action movies, they aren't cinema and they are more like adventures, right? What are your thoughts on that, and how do you think like small movies or like small budget movies can do better at the or like how can the whole movie going experience be changed? We'll start with you again, Nirmit.
I was going to say this somewhere along this episode. Martin Scorsese's comments, I think 2 years ago. And then I think one of the Russo brothers had sort of commented saying, "Oh, I that's so sad. I really admire you."
Yeah, I think the Russo brothers, they have a totally opposite stance of that. They literally, their Twitter bio says,
No, I think
we make movies for people. So you can clearly see that.
no, I mean, look, I think again, on a personal level, he can make whatever comments he wants, but he's from a different era of filmmaking. So I get what he's saying. That's also fine. So even today, if he makes, I mean, whatever movies he makes obviously won't have CGI, won't be superhero oriented in any way. It'll be the opposite, very real, very rustic characters. And same with Quentin Tarantino. But again, I don't think movies have survived because of this very set sort set sort of stories and filmmaking like these guys do. It survived to this point because there's so much variety in everything. I mean, for example, he wouldn't have commented this about Star Wars in the 70s and 80s, right?
Yeah.
Star Wars at that time was, or even Bond, for example, they were revolutionary for like using technology and
Yeah.
graphics and sort of superimposing
Soundtrack.
things.
How can you forget soundtrack?
Yeah, again, it's so at that point it was even more revolutionary. In 2015, doing an Avengers movie is okay. I mean, you have a lot of high performance computers, you know how to make shit work. But in the 80s, for example, it was even more unorthodox to make something like Star Wars and have it hit that big. So I think it's a very personal and niche view of someone who's from a different era of filmmaking. Something similar. I mean, for example, probably I don't know Karan Johar or I don't know Rohit Shetty or someone would maybe feel threatened by I don't know someone like Nikhil Advani or whoever. I mean, a new director, I guess.
Hmm.
So I don't know if they'll pass snide remarks like that or not. But yeah, I think it's just a creative space where lots of people can thrive. So And again, you might say ki, oh, these Marvel and whatever, these superhero movies are sellouts and they're not really filmmaking or whatever, but the money still comes, right?
They're worth the
If
money.
I mean, no, if they weren't good, if they weren't real, or if people hadn't resonated with them, they wouldn't have hit this big. And I don't know, like mucked in like $1 billion plus each time.
Hmm.
So I think it's useless to say that they're not filmmaking. I don't know if he thought very deeply about what he said, but it's a very purist view. And again, there'll always be, I mean, in any field, there'll be someone saying, "Oh, this is not the right way. हमारे ज़माने में ऐसा होता था." Get it? Like
Hmm.
this is ये सब नया है.
The
I mean, I don't agree
Atmaraptakaram
with
Bide
this.
of filmmaking.
Yeah. So again, he's right to say what he said because he's been making films in a different way, and this is a completely different way of. For example, I know I'm stretching this, but like Quentin Tarantino, when he started out, now you expect Quentin Tarantino movies to be, his signature style and his sort of twists and violence and blah blah. But when he started making movies, it was completely unorthodox, right? I mean, nobody had ever seen something along those lines. I mean, they had in westerns and stuff, but not something dark, grimy, and funny at the same time. All of that. So he became unique in his own way. So I think he should allow people others, their space also.
Hmm. That was nice.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to Nair now.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that it's a roller coaster, I mean, or not a roller coaster, I think he said, what was it? It is an adventure ride or something, right? I
Adventure,
would agree.
yeah.
Yeah, I would agree that it's an adventure ride, but it is a cinema, and it is like that's a cinema which is a high throttle and a high speed adventure ride, which just makes you feel in a certain way and makes like people around the globe feel in a certain way that they just can't miss like what do you say a new Marvel movie or new franchise movie
Hmm.
whenever it releases. Like most of the superhero movies have, I guess, the biggest opening days every single year in consecutive years, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, again, as Nirmit said, I would say it's a very what do you say a kind of remark which is a bit uh, yeah,
purist.
it's a purist view, and it does not suit well to the time like that where we are living right now. But I'll tell you, I mean, not completely going off the topic, but I'll tell you one thing that it's sort of saturating. I mean, but still, it's good. You have lots and lots of content, but it is sort of saturating.
Hmm.
Like you have new content coming in Disney Plus and like several movies coming in a single year. I think pandemic has slowed it a little bit, but I'm pretty sure in a few years time you'll have more and more
Diverse.
movies coming over like every single year. Like if you just dial back maybe back to 2008, where you just had a bunch of movies, maybe like two or three superhero movies, maybe more. I might be wrong here, but
Hmm.
you sort of knew it was like you could sort of distinguish it. You could call it an era of like maybe Iron Man, or
Hmm.
maybe before that the Hulk movies or something. I don't know. And even before that, the X-Men movies and the Raimi trilogy. But that's the thing. It was like a few superhero movies per year. But now you have multiple superhero movies. You have multiple TV series like in a single year, and it's sort of too much content to take in together. And I'm not sure if it is the correct way to go. It is what it says the smart way to do it. Like if you were a businessman, you would bank on the current what do you say success that's there. But that's what do you say the direction where we are going at right now. And I would say this is sort of going into the trends of theory, to sort of going in line with the theory of diminishing returns. So I mean, at what point will we be like reaching the peak, and at what point will it'll be a gate crash and stuff like that. I think maybe a couple of decades from now, but yeah,
Hmm.
I personally have I've sort of started feeling saturated by the amount of content already. I mean, I can't catch a break, but yeah.
Yeah, man. There's like a new MCU show every 2 or 3 months, and it's like, and you can't miss it because it adds up to the whole storyline, right? So yeah, there is a lot of
Yeah.
content coming.
Yeah. I'm sorry to stray off the topic, but yeah, that was something which just came popped in my mind.
Yeah, no problem. So about movie going experience. Yeah, I do agree to an extent. I do understand what Scorsese comments were saying that the new action oriented films, they are nothing but adventure rides. Yes, having been to Spider-Man No Way Home, and just yesterday I saw the Batman movie. The the, the collective hooting, or the collective experience that I had as a crowd, is obviously, it was unmatched. Like, I will never forget the experience that I had with No Way Home. Uh, I was having, I was having a lot of joy every 5 minutes, and it was not just me; it was like the people around me cheering, and um, hooting for Peter Parker, and not just one Peter Parker, but obviously with Toby and Andrew coming back, there were it was like a bit of nostalgia. Like, as a kid, I'm sure we've seen those movies and see them back on the big screen, and it was a lot of nostalgia, and you know that was the time I realized that, okay, what movies are becoming like an adventure ride. And the 300 that I paid for Spider-Man was obviously worth it. So yeah, coming back to how can small budget films survive. One of the things that could possibly be done is not I mean taking it directly to OTT platforms is probably a solution. Like Netflix and Amazon Prime, they are shelling out a lot of money to get shows on their platform. But if like if the director or the producer is still very hell bent on making sending them that particular movie to theaters, what you could do is you could maybe reduce the prices so that uh, you could still watch it casually on a weekend. Like, instead of going out on a weekend or on a drive or something, you could still watch like a small budget film, maybe for like 100 150 rupees, and you could still have a good time. But again, do you think is it worth it to spend this much money to on a small budget film, or would you save it up for a larger movie like the Avengers or the Doctor Strange movie which is going to come out? I don't know. um, but who knows? It's I still like the movie going experience, watching it with friends. Me and my friends have this regular thing of watching Marvel movies the first weekend it comes out, and on the like the first show, or like the evening, or like Saturday kind of a show. So yeah, we're still gonna do it. And yeah, I still like the movie going experience. Any last thoughts before we close this off? That
Yeah, I mean, again, I totally, it's not like it's a work of charity or something, but I definitely agree with you. Movie, I mean, you should definitely watch movies on the big screen, because I mean, they're filmed for the big screen. I mean, there's a lot
Yeah.
of, I mean, the technical process itself is aligned for the big screen. So, I mean, of course, even though they release it for whatever 4K on Netflix or whatever, but it's still the whole process, the effort that goes into making a movie is for the big screen. So it's best enjoyed there. And I think it'll, in a few years, in a few months, maybe there'll be an equilibrium between, I mean, movie, the producers will sort of get to know, I mean, they'll have sort of a grown instinct of where to release their movies. Uh, and I think that sort of distinction will come from the producer rather than the audience. And then, of course, you'll have no choice. So if they release a movie, a very sort of niche movie, which is, I don't know, social, I don't know, some social issue based, they'll maybe release it on OTT for like a niche audience. And then a superhero movie will obviously go to the theater. So instead of us deciding and us sort of responding to the numbers and them making losses based on their guesses, I think it will come to an equilibrium where they'll have a much better instinct at sort of dividing the two. But yeah, I don't think movie theaters are dying out or whatever. They might be making losses, and I guess the money equation has definitely changed. But yeah, I think it's still going to come to an equilibrium, just not an equilibrium that was there in 2020 January, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, yeah, I'm still very much hyped to go to a theater, but I've become much more selective about it. And when I
Correct.
say selective about it, it's it's just every single new MCU movie I get, MCU or DC movie. So yeah, I'm not really sure, but yeah. And some, like one part of my heart even, sort of wants to go to say, wants to go to theater and watch a niche movie, an indie movie. But at the same time, I just feel that the experience is not lost if I'm watching it on an OTT platform. So,
Hmm.
I like personally, it's just, what do you say? It's just a seesaw for me, Uh, I can't really make a decision, but at the same time, if I'm going on to watch something on theater, it's very much specifically superhero movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So along same lines, I like good movies, like they're really good, but I enjoy the movies that I see on OTT platforms. But it's just that I'm fine watching it in a small screen. Like if the movies that I'd want to watch on the big screen are, the next Jurassic World movie, the next Doctor Strange movie, maybe even like the next Amir Khan movie, which is called Lal Singh Chadda. So it's just that I've become selective about the movies that I'm seeing. All right, then. That was a great episode. I shall catch you guys in the next one. Thank you.
Thanks, my love.